Welcome to a new Webflow tutorial here on this Formwork channel. My name is Jonas Arlett and today I'm showing you how to properly animate the native Webflow navbar, so the classic hamburger menu, using the new GSAP Interactions and the brand new timeline. And right now there is still no built-in navbar open or navbar close trigger like we had in the old classic interactions. And many of you thought custom animations for the native nav element were simply impossible now. But they are totally possible. And I'm walking you through my cleanest workaround, zero custom code needed. And we're going to build this beautiful full screen website navigation. And this is straight from my lesson 9 of my brand new Webflow GSAP masterclass. And if you want to master the new GSAP timeline in Webflow, this course is exactly what you need. And if you like this kind of clever GSAP trick, check out this video here I did on animating Webflow's native tabs component. It's a similar problem and there is currently no built-in trigger, but you can definitely get super impressive results with the GSAP timeline as well. Link and free clonable in the video description. With only 2 settings, we can also reverse this entrance animation. That means it is not like with the old Webflow interactions where we had to create 2, one for the entrance animation and then one for the exit animation. We create just one interaction, and as soon as the user clicks a defined close link or a navigation link, everything simply plays backwards a bit faster, which is a game changer and it speeds up the workflow enormously. From the structure, you can see that I still have our header component with the navigation inside. That means this here is normally our main navigation. On tablet, this becomes the usual slide down, drop down, and we leave it like that. So we are not animating that one, but I integrated a separate new navigation component below. And this one is on our inspirations page here. So you can copy that one out from the course template, and you can also integrate or have multiple Webflow navigation components on the same page. So that's not a problem. And structurally, I can quickly drop the original in again. So you see what I changed. And first we have this container inside. I also have this one here. And then comes the logo. I simply inserted a text into the link block. Then inside there is also the toggle element. And in my case, without an icon here, I just also use a normal text element. And then in the middle, there is the Webflow navigation element. And I intentionally named it like this because I cannot pull it out of the component, because this is exactly what must contain the navigation links. And here it already gets a nav tag assigned by Webflow. So that is pretty important. And Webflow directly packs in the navigation links in, but in my case, I nested it again. And I can show you why, because if we now make this navigation visible in the settings menu show, you can see that the navigation Webflow element is currently set to width and height 100% and position fixed in all corners. So I use this element as an overlay full screen over the entire page. That's basically the only thing I do with this Webflow element. Also, Flexbox settings here is not working very well, and this is why I also integrate another div inner element. And I set this one to Flexbox vertically, and that one contains all the navigation links and so on. I also set this one to Overflow Outer, so if we have a lot of navigation points here inside, we can vertically scroll the list. And then you can see next to the navigation list, I also have the navigation media wrapper. That's the right side. If you just want a very simple navigation, you could totally just delete that content out of the navigation. In my case, I also inserted a button element here inside. And similarly, instead of using a background video here, I believe this is currently a background video, yeah, you could also hide the video in the settings and display an image instead, for example, and it would work just the same by addressing the image instead of the video element later in the GSAP animation. Very important is you also need to integrate a close link. Unfortunately, we cannot use a button element here for that, even though logically it should be a button, because in the end it doesn't link to anywhere, to any other page. But if we go to the live preview, then you see that every link clicked inside the navigation will at the same time also act as a toggle to close the navigation overlay. And that means I can click a link that leads somewhere, even if it's a link to an anchor on the same page. Or I can also integrate an empty link basically, and that leads nowhere, and that would also count as a close the overlay toggle. But we can still add a role, a button attribute here to the link element for screen readers, and then it will be treated as a button for them, and maybe an area label close overlay. And right now you can see we have the standard slide up and down animation that it's pre-built in the Webflow navigation component. This slide down animation from Webflow we want to completely disable. And therefore we go to the navigation Webflow element. At the very bottom we can add a custom property of transform none. And it's best to add an important at the end. And then when I toggle the open state, now it appears immediately. And on the close state, when I click, you notice it takes 600 milliseconds until the navigation disappears or until the display none state is applied. So what does it mean for our animation? This duration here is not important for our entrance animation, but it's important for the exit animation because we have to add here almost exactly the timing of our GSAP animation later. Because after 600 milliseconds, the navigation will be set to display none. So let's now take the navigation toggle element as a trigger and make a new click interaction on it. And I name this one Fullscreen Navigation Open. And for this trigger, I choose each click and then play from beginning. And what is important, as target, we choose the navigation toggle or the class that is assigned there. And because we cannot see the navigation content right now, let's press the D on your keyboard and then it's going directly to the settings and we can click Show Menu. Let's go back to the navigation animation. And then I choose the navigation inner div element here because that's the one I want to animate now. And we can do that by adding our first action by double clicking the timeline. And then we change the target from trigger element to class. So it's automatically inserting our currently selected class name and remove the filter here because it's not inside of our trigger. And then we can say we want this element to come from -100%. So we slide it up fully out of the view and it should go from there to 0%. And we want that done in maybe a second and also with an expo out easing. So this is basically just a plain slide down animation like we had before. To also animate all the links, we can select the navigation list where all the links are inside. Then we add a new action step, call this links. And then it's important that we don't choose the navigation list here, but one of the navigation links here inside because we want to stagger them in one after another. So we go to target, choose class, and it's inserting the navigation link here. And for the filter, we choose within and then not our trigger element, but the navigation list element. So we can insert the class name here. We also use an expo out as an easing, and all these elements should come from -100% to 0. And because we are using a lot of masked stagger effect here on this layout, we can also set this up here in the navigation, choose stagger offset time with 50 milliseconds, and then we split the text by word and also mask it by word. And as you can see, this is already working, but the navigation points are coming in way too early. And this is where the timeline here is perfect. We can adjust the delay here accordingly. And now maybe also set the duration of the link animation to 1 second. Let me zoom out the timeline here a bit so we can see the whole animation and activate the loop to better see what we can optimize. So let's see, I feel the whole thing could even take a bit longer and have the links come in a little later so that the animation feels softer. But otherwise, it's already pretty cool with just 2 settings here. Next, we could animate the close button and the portfolio button here as well below the image. In that case, I start with the close button. So let's select this link block, add a new action step. We name this one button. And then we change the target from trigger to class. The cool thing is we can also add another target, which then is the portfolio button here below. In this case, there is a wrapper element around it, which is stretched the full width of the media wrapper element. So maybe that's also okay to scale this down with the same animation. So this is a pretty cool new GSAP feature here. And we can scale them both down to 0 and then go back to 1 with an expo out easing. And now you can see that, there's also a gradient behind the media button div element. So that means I just have to grab, maybe change this one to wrapper, and then grab the button element and make another div element around it. And then we can target this class in our animation. And therefore you could write in the class name manually or just click class again. Let's see how this is looking. Maybe we can adjust the timing a little bit so they animate in right after the links. And then we could also animate the media element, in my case the video. So let's add a new action step here. I changed the name here to media and the duration of 1.1 seconds. Yeah, maybe it's good for now. And as a target, we choose class again. So it's inserting the navigation video. And then there are multiple options to animate this element. Maybe we try a scale from 0 to 1 as well. So it's maybe looking good next to the button animation. But it's also a little bit too slow. So let's change the easing to an expo in out. And it should also start at the beginning. So let's see, it's coming here out of space. So this is looking really interesting. If sometimes the animation preview here feels a little bit out of performance, you can just toggle on the loop element here. And then it feels like the second round of the animation is way smoother. Maybe this animation feels a bit too hectic for our project, but it could also be quite nice. Let's delete the scale here by pressing the Alt key, and then let's try to move in the Y direction 100%, and then it's coming in from the bottom to the 0. Cool. Maybe we change the easing here to an expo out and then give it a little bit of a delay. That could also look very nice. Alternatively, we could animate in the X direction from -100 to 0, and then it would come in horizontally from the side. Ooh, that's also interesting. Difficult to decide, but you have multiple options, and I leave the last animation here like it is. And then we can toggle off or hide the menu, go in the live preview. And when I then open the navigation and click the close button, then nothing happens yet because we didn't add an exit animation. But the navigation closes after 600 milliseconds because of Webflow. And to address that, we just need to go back into the animation trigger. And we currently only have the navigation toggle here set up as our main trigger. But now we can add another one. So let's select the close button link first, then add another trigger on click, and then make sure that there is the correct class name here inserted. And on each click, we want to reverse the animation. And this is so cool that this is possible now. And that is already a dramatic speed boost compared to the old Webflow interactions where you had to define a separate animation for the out animation. And of course, you could still duplicate the entrance animation here in GSAP Interactions and then modify some properties if you want a different exit animation. But this simple method here to just reverse it is extremely fast. Now we know regarding the speed for the exit animation, we must hit approximately 600 milliseconds. And that is where this speed setting becomes really useful. That means we do not enter 1 here, but for example 1.75. And that makes the reverse animation play faster. And this is super useful. And if we test this now in the live preview and toggle the close button, we see that the out animation is being cut off. So that means the speed should be a little bit longer. And if we have a look at the current animation, we see that it's 1.5, or maybe with the stagger, it's 1.7 or 8 seconds. So we changed the speed here to 2.5 maybe. But you could also make the 600 milliseconds in the Webflow navigation settings a little bit longer. So that it depends on your animation type and how fast you want to exit the navigation. If you animate the main navigation inside a component, make sure the animation is set to run on all pages here, so it works everywhere in your component. But now if you, for example, also want to link to a service anchor on the same page, then you don't want the overlay to simply jump and then close after 600 milliseconds while the anchor scrolls happening. You want the exit animation to play here on those navigation links as well. And to ensure that, you will have to add another trigger in the navigation. So what we can do is choose one of those navigation links here and then add one other click trigger here. And then it's inserting the navigation link here, which is correct. And on each click, we want to reverse the whole thing and also increase the speed a bit. And that's how you can animate the native navigation with the new GSAP Interactions.